Hello again, and welcome back to the Okanagan Reader. I'm your host, Jim Bowering. I imagine some of you are wondering by now about this hat. What is that hat? What is that emblem on the front of the hat? What could it possibly mean? Well, good. I'm glad you're wondering. I'd really like to thank those of you who come here and listen to these stories every day. It makes me feel good. It gives me some satisfaction knowing that there are people who are enjoying this story and enjoying my reading of it. If you are enjoying it, please subscribe. Subscribe to this thing, whatever it is, this Okanagan Reader, and boost my subscription rates. That'll make me feel good. And it'll probably make you feel good for making me feel good, because everyone knows that altruism is a real thing. Also, if you do like the video, like it. Click the like button. Give it a thumbs up. Apparently, the algorithm says that the more likes something gets, the more high profile it is, and the more people get to learn about it. So, if you like it, make it possible for more people to learn about it so they can like it too. Anyway, today's reading is Chapter 11 of Green Comet, the first book in the Green Comet trilogy. This is where we first learn about flashball, the most popular sport on Green Comet. Elgin goes grudgingly to a game and sees something unexpected. He learns something, too. Okay. I think the story is getting more interesting. I don't know about you, but I'm starting to wonder what's going to happen next. So, here we go then.
Chapter 11. Flashball. Elgin woke to the sound of someone in the kitchen. He closed his eyes and tried to go back to sleep. That's what he needed now. A few more hours of oblivion. Not another day full of people he had to see and things he had to do. He gave it a good effort, but after a half hour of listening to Minder try not to wake him, he had to get up. Really had to. When he came out of the bathroom, Minder was just putting breakfast on the table. "Did they hire you to cook for me, too?" Elgin asked testily. "No, yes, I'm here to do for you, but I wasn't hired." Minder had a slight blush that didn't seem to know what it wanted to do. "I won this assignment," he said, obviously flustered. "We have a winner. Congratulations." Elgin bellied up to the table. "What do we have this morning?" he said, surveying the spread. "Would you like some coffee? Does it have caffeine?" "Your choice," said Minder, brandishing 2 pots. "Amazing what they can do with algae these days," muttered Elgin. He picked up a warm biscuit and savored its aroma. No sense letting it go to waste, he thought. Make it a half and half, black. Minder filled his micro-G cup and came over to join him. Once he was at the table, Elgin couldn't see the lower half of his body. Couldn't see the arms where legs ought to be. You don't have to hide those any more, you know. "Oh," said Minder, glancing down. "I didn't even think of it. You seemed to be okay with it, so I kind of forgot." "I'm used to it," said Elgin. "Oh, it still surprises me once in a while, but it doesn't bother me." He chewed his biscuit. "What am I going to do when it starts to seem normal?" Minder laughed. "I'm glad you're in a good mood," he began. "When am I otherwise?" "Ha! Anyway, I have an outing planned for this afternoon." "What is it?" Elgin sighed. "How long will it take?" He gave Minder the eye. "There'd better not be any of those," he groped for words, "those people that we met yesterday. I swear, Minder, if one of them comes within arm's reach of me, I'm not sure what I'll do." "No guarantees, Elgin. This is a free comet. But we have tried to impress on them that you value your privacy, and it would be rude to impose themselves on you." "Good. What did they say to that?" "Something about how the lives of the saints aren't private property," Minder hastened to add, seeing Elgin's fur start to bristle. "But they promised to honor your request, because of your special relationship to Francis." Elgin ground his teeth. "Fine," he growled. I suppose that will have to do. There's not much more we can do. It's not as if we can lock them up or anything. They'd probably like that anyway. Martyrs for the cause and all that. Elgin shook it off. Where are we going then? Minder beamed. It's a flashball game, he said. Flashball? Elgin was immediately interested. Who's playing? Your old team, the Harriers. They're still going? Elgin sipped his coffee and picked up another biscuit, while Minder held his breath. What the heck, let's go. Elgin enjoyed his breakfast. The flashball arena was a hollow sphere of water ice, 100 meters across. There was a good crowd there already, but Elgin and Minder had no trouble finding a place close to the ice. Other than the buttresses anchoring it to the walls and the space taken by the players' entrance, the whole surface was available for viewing, so no fan was likely to be turned away. The lack of seats and stairs and other structures made redundant by microgravity also freed up a lot of space. A murmur went through the crowd when they arrived and his face was shown on the monitors, but no one approached them. Elgin's preference for privacy was well known and almost universally respected, with only the occasional exception like yesterday's. Now another murmur, becoming a soft roar, swept around the flashball arena. The players were entering. 16 athletes, representing each team, plus 4 officials streamed through the entrance together to a firm round of applause from the fans. Everyone, players and officials, took a few laps just inside the curving, transparent boundary of the field. Some of the players were doing aerobatics, testing their moves, but most of them just flew, stretching their wings. Then the referees and team captains drifted to the center for their pre-game meeting. After a brief lecture from the referees, followed by handshakes, they all seemed to be looking in Elgin's direction. He glanced at Minder as they came his way, but Minder just shrugged. The 6 of them stopped in front of Elgin, while the rest of the players gathered in a loose group about 5 meters behind them, all looking through the ice at him. Elgin looked hard at Minder, but he just raised his palms, so Elgin turned his eyes back to the apparent delegation. One of the referees came forward a little, holding out the flashball. He raised his eyebrows and made an offering motion. A susurration swept around the sphere as people saw what was happening, and it quickly turned to a buzz of encouragement. When Elgin realized that they wanted him to do a ceremonial toss-in, his first instinct was to refuse. The crowd moaned with disappointment. Minder nudged him. Come on, Elgin. Elgin's face closed up. The officials, the players, and the fans sagged. Come on, Elgin, pleaded Minder. Then Elgin's face softened. With a wry smile, he shook his head at himself, then turned and nodded at the referee. The crowd applauded gratefully. Elgin made his way around to the players' entrance, flying slowly through the path that the people made for him. He responded graciously to their well wishes, muttering his thank yous. He dipped through the entrance and fluttered to a stop. The referee handed him the ball and shook his hand, followed by the other officials, the captains, and all 30 of the rest of them. He floated, hefting the familiar shape of the regulation 20-centimeter, 300-gram flashball. Thousands of faces were pressed to the ice, watching with intense focus. He glanced back at Minder, hovering near the portal as he prepared to launch the ball and start the game. He stopped when Minder shook his head vigorously. Say something, Minder mouthed. Elgin rolled his eyes at him, but he was smiling. All right, he mouthed back. He looked at the players arrayed at a respectful distance. They were about evenly mixed men and women, and clustered at random rather than segregated by team. He cleared his throat. Good afternoon. He paused for their response. You might not know it, but I'm not much for speeches. He grinned at Minder in their burst of laughter. Minder's face flashed sheepish. So I'll keep this short. I know I hated long speeches when I played. Some of you might be aware that I played for the Harriers, so I won't pretend to be impartial. The Falcons had to absorb some good-natured gloating from their opposition as the Harriers rubbed it in. But it doesn't matter who you play for. The important thing is the memories you create this day, the joy of working as a team. Much nodding as Elgin readied himself for the toss-in. So, keep it clean, and create some beauty for these people. He launched the ball hard toward the center of the arena, and it flashed right through orange to bright yellow. As the players lunged after it, Elgin slipped back outside to watch the game. "Nice speech, Elgin," said Minder. "Nice throw, too. Looks like you've still got the arm." "Yeah," muttered Elgin. "Sore arm. I think I injured my rotator cuff." "Really? Are you okay? Do you want to go back?" "No, I'm fine. I just need to remember how old I am." The first half was quite tentative, with neither team able to sustain any kind of attack. The truth was, these were two evenly matched teams, and their defensive play was impeccable. By the end of the half, each team had managed several minor formations and one major pattern. The Falcons held a slight lead because their major involved 9 players in the pattern, the Harriers only 8. Halftime was about 20 minutes, usually, but it could be more if someone needed more time. The fans didn't mind. They had refreshments, and there was always lots of visiting to do. Elgin chatted with his immediate neighbors and found out they were quite knowledgeable about the game, and not only the present day. They knew about his team, when he played with the Harriers many centuries ago. They even knew a few of his teammates, which gave him something to talk about. "Yes, I remember Lewis and Rita. We called them Gassy and Dodger," Elgin said to the squat burly man who had mentioned them. "Gassy? You mean—" After a second, Elgin said, No, not at all. We called him Gassy because he talked so much, mostly trying to chat up Rita, and that's why we called her Dodger." "I see," laughed the man, along with everyone else around them. "Did he ever catch her?" "Yes, as a matter of fact. They ended up together. They eventually got married." Elgin's eyes unfocused, and his face relaxed as he remembered the faraway time. The burly man, whose name was Al, said quietly, "I can tell you enjoyed your time with the Harriers." "Definitely. One of the highlights of my life." He looked at the empty globe. Seeing the patterns of players flying, passing the glowing ball in choreographed plays. The satisfaction of completing a complex pattern in spite of the other team's attempts to disrupt it. The delighted sounds from the crowd, worth as much as the points they earned for a well-executed play. He looked at the entrance. "I wonder what's taking them so long." "I hope no one was injured," said burly Al. "I don't think so," said Elgin. "There was only that one bad collision, and they both seemed fine afterwards." "Yeah, you're right," Al agreed. "It scared the heck out of me, though." He shook his head. "I could never do what they do, what you did." "You never played flashball?" Elgin asked, genuinely surprised. "Oh, no, I played all right. We all played when we were kids." Al shook his head again. "I was just never any good at it." He laughed at himself and winked at Elgin. "I've got 2 left wings." "I see," said Elgin. It was hard for him to imagine what it must be like, but he knew logically that there would be just as many ungifted athletes as gifted ones. "You never lost interest, though." "Lose interest in flashball?" Al looked around at the faces in their circle. "Hey, I'm clumsy, not crazy." He basked in a round of friendly laughter while Elgin clapped him on the back. "But seriously, the things you real athletes do, they're a gift of beauty to the rest of us." People were nodding earnestly. "Right?" he said, and everyone agreed. "Well," Elgin said hesitantly, "thanks, but we were just playing, just trying to get it right." "You did that all right, like the Elgin fractal." A rush of agreement from the circle, faces in awe-filled smiles. "The what?" "The Elgin fractal, your play, when you were with the Harriers." "Oh, that. We called that pattern the flying fractal, actually." "Well, it's the Elgin fractal now. Probably the most famous play in flashball history." "Oh, for goodness sake," sighed Elgin. "We came up with that play as a team, and all teams have their own patterns." "Sure, but there's only one Elgin fractal." Al drew his listeners close and spoke with hushed fervor. "A 16-player pattern. Hard enough, using ordinary geometry, but with fractal geometry it goes to a whole new level." He had their rapt attention. "Every player on the team handles the ball twice. The pattern starts large, steps down in repeating iterations as each player flies their segment before passing to the next. Then the ball is bounced off the ice and they work their way back up." They were nodding. Everyone knew this, but they didn't care. Al told it well, and they were actually here with Elgin himself. This is a very difficult pattern in itself, but it has to be done while the other team tries to break it up. Al was shaking his head again, and Elgin's Harriers did it while passing the ball so sharply that it was bright yellow the whole time. Well, actually, began Elgin, but he was cut off by a stirring in the crowd. The teams were flying back into the sphere. The players cruised slowly around the field. They all looked Elgin's way as they passed, most of them nodding if he happened to meet their eyes. Where at the beginning of the game they had been full of energy, almost anxious to get underway, now they seemed quieter, almost serious. They fell to the center where they formed their loose phalanxes to await the toss-in. The referees were spaced around the outside, the one with the ball just inside the entrance. The lights began to dim. Elgin looked around. "What's going on?" he asked Minder. "I wanted to surprise you with this," said Minder, bursting with satisfaction. "There's been a small change to the rules, Elgin. The second half is played in darkness now." "But," said Elgin, "how do they—" He looked at the others who were smiling. Al winked at him. "Never mind," he said. "Let's see how this works." It seemed pitch black at first, but then their vision enhancements kicked in and they were able to see each other, even recognize their black shapes in the dark gray ambient lighting. Then they could pick up the glow of the ball, as it moved slightly when the referee shifted position. Just about the time everyone was beginning to feel comfortable with the dimness, the ball flared redly as the referee cocked his arm, then flashed yellow toward the players. It seemed to leave a trail of light behind it to their sensitive eyes. "Ah," said Elgin, "I see." The second half was similar to the first in the careful play and strong defense, but there was a difference. It seemed more deliberate and determined. The players' faces were more intense, with less emotion showing through. Gone were the grins of pleasure seen in the first half. Even the bioluminescence was more muted. Scoring was minimal, with each side notching a few small conservative formations and some minor patterns. They seemed to be able to anticipate each other's moves and break things up before they really got started. As the points slowly accumulated, the Falcons hung on to their slim lead, even added to it a little. Elgin found the new rule interesting. Once his eyes adjusted completely, he was able to see more details, and he could tell where all the flyers were and what they were doing. He couldn't see more than the barest details of the expressions on their faces, but the bioglow was almost as good, even for someone as new to it as he was. The moving light from the ball illuminated the players like a mobile campfire. The whole thing, sitting in the dark surrounded by thousands of people, watching the play of firelight beyond the ice, was magical. It was a bit like being a child up past their bedtime, and Elgin took pleasure in the nostalgia. Al broke in. "What are they up to, Elgin?" Elgin shrugged. "Is the game more defensive now?" "Well, a little, but these guys are playing chess," Al said, pointing with his chin. As soon as he said that, Elgin saw the game differently. The plays the teams were making changed from discrete events into part of a developing pattern. Something started teasing around the edges of his brain, a vague itch that wouldn't hold still to be scratched. "Elgin," said Al, nudging him gently, "what is it?" "You're thinking something," Al insisted. "Do you see something I don't see? Are they up to something?" Elgin looked at him, but Al could tell his focus was somewhere else. "No," said Elgin. "At least, I'm not sure." His gaze fell back to the playing field, where it took in the moves and counter-moves, absorbing everything as a whole. His mouth moved slightly as he watched. Al closed his mouth and let him be. Over the next few minutes, Elgin thought he was beginning to see a pattern. Literally. He was increasingly sure that he could detect a method to the way the Harriers were playing the game. They were grudgingly ceding a few points here and there to the Falcons, but a certain persistent asymmetry was forming in the overall disposition of the players within the sphere. The Harrier captain threw a long ball, then took off in a beeline for the other side. The throw was caught and flung on. One more throw and the first quartet was nearly finished before the Falcons caught on. Elgin wasn't fooled, though. He recognized the opening stanza of the Flying Fractal and began anticipating the players' moves. That's where he did get fooled. Centuries of familiarity meant that defending against it was in everybody's playbook, and it was rare for it to get beyond the second stanza, the third at the most. It had become a tradition of sorts to try it once in a while, and it was almost ceremonial. Something teams did to please the fans because they really liked to see it. They were getting excited now, as they recognized the familiar opening movement. Defending against it came down to adopting a one-on-one strategy, a change from the usually structured team play. With someone dogging everyone, it was just a matter of time before a pass got picked off. The Falcons did that, and the Harriers kept to their predictable ways until the second stanza was one throw from completion. Then the dynamic arrangement of flyers changed unexpectedly. The wrong person caught the ball, and the fractal went off in completely the wrong direction. In the confusion, the Harriers quickly completed 3 small stanzas before the Falcons adjusted. The crowd was busily adjusting too. They were so used to what they expected to see that this flouting of tradition had them off balance. But they were thrilled too, and watching intently. They might not be doing it the way they were supposed to, but the Harriers were 5/8 of the way through now, much further than anyone in recent memory, and only 3 more quartets of players left to handle the ball. Al glanced at Elgin to see how he was taking it. Doing this was almost a betrayal of the Elgin fractal, but he saw a pleased little smirk on Elgin's face. Al grinned and went back to the game. The Falcons adjusted well and were closing in again, but this time the Harriers deviated halfway through the 6th stanza, and that bought them the time they needed to bring it all the way down to the last 2 throws. The first, a long, blistering, bright yellow bullet, toward a point chosen by the captain for her final reception. She was on her way there, timing her arrival when she noticed the Falcons' captain heading for the same spot. She veered slightly and gave a few hard thrusts to catch the ball a little sooner, but her opponent did the same thing. As the crowd held its breath, the 2 captains bore down. It was hard to tell who would get there first, but they knew it would be close. At the last instant, before what would certainly be a hard collision and the end of a hard-fought pattern, the captain pirouetted under the ball's flight path and plucked it out of the hands of her opponent. The crowd gasped, then drew in its breath again as she rolled into a throwing position and hurled the ball in a nearly white streak toward Elgin, who had his hand on the ice for a target. All eyes were on the ball, and no one was breathing when a flyer streaked into view, a Falcon who had anticipated this and was driving hard for the point of impending impact with the obvious intention of knocking it away to break up the play. The smile on Elgin's face grew as his eyes darted between the ball in front of him and the Falcon to his right. The ball and the flyer arrived simultaneously, with the ball being knocked back into the field and the player sliding part way around the wall before catching air with his wings and soaring back toward Elgin. The play was so close that nobody was sure whether the ball had hit the wall to complete the pattern. All eyes turned to Elgin as the lights slowly came up. "Ah," he said, glancing at Al, who was looking speculative. He said, looking at Minder, who was trying to look bland. "All right then," he said, heading for the players' entrance. The crowd parted almost silently, the air charged with unspent emotions. Elgin saw a lot of different colors in their bio-glow, and, although a novice at reading it, he could tell they were still charged up by the thrilling finish to the game, and frustrated by its anticlimax. He wasted no time getting inside, where they gave him the ball and fell back to await his decision. He looked at them and said, "Hello again. First, thank you all for a well-played game." He cocked his head at the Harriers' captain, saying, "And an interesting one," obviously referring to its unorthodox final pattern. While everyone laughed politely, he looked at the 2 captains floating near each other and winked at them. "Thank you for the beauty you gave us today, everyone." He gestured to the players and the officials and led the house in a heartfelt round of applause. "Now it is my honor to decide whether that last pattern was completed or not, as a sober judge and impartial witness." While the place rang with laughter, bursting from thousands of lungs in a gust of relief, Elgin waved the 2 captains over. With their 3 heads close together, Elgin told them what he had seen, and they both agreed with him immediately. He shook their hands, gripping each long and firmly, and thanked them again. As the laughter trickled away, Elgin held the flashball high, capturing their immediate attention. "I declare," he said loudly, that the flying fractal formation attempted by the Harriers today, he continued, ignoring the few shouts of Elgin Fractal, was not only the most beautiful thing I've seen in far too long, it was also the first successfully completed flying fractal in just as long. He looked at Al, who nodded sharply in the wave of cheering that rose around him. Elgin patted the air to quiet them a little. So it's my honor and pleasure to present this game ball to the Harriers, a new legend for a legendary team. Then everyone, including all the players and the referees, indulged themselves in a flood of thanks and congratulation. Back at Elgin's rooms, the two of them were preparing dinner. Elgin was quiet. He'd hardly said a word since leaving the game, so wrapped in thought that he didn't notice Minder stealing glances at him on the flight home. Now, though, he felt his gaze and looked at him, causing some flustered flickering. "What's up, Minder?" Minder's mouth opened and closed twice, then he took a breath. "You haven't said much," he started, "since the game." He looked worried. "Are you mad at me?" "Mad at you?" "Yes, for making you go, and give a speech, and all those people." He reined himself in. "I mean, did I do the wrong thing?" He looked comically pathetic, knew it, and hated it. "No," said Elgin. "Goodness, no. I'm glad I went." "Really?" "Yes, and I'm glad I met those people." Elgin was animated by the memories he knew would stay with him. "In fact, Al and I have a date to go to the next Harriers game." "Wow, so it's all right then?" "Yes, Minder, it's very all right." Elgin touched his arm. "I hope you weren't too worried." "No, not really. I just wasn't sure and you weren't talking." "Sorry, it's just that everything that happened today, well, it got me thinking." "About the days you played and the Elgin Fractal?" "Yes, but it's not just that. And it's Flying Fractal, or whatever name the team wants to give it. They didn't do an Elgin Fractal today. They did something entirely their own." Minder nodded sagely. Elgin rolled his eyes. "Anyway, it made me think about my life." "Good thoughts, I hope." "Yes, and it's thanks to you for getting me out of myself." "I know I haven't been the best of company." A quick glance was enough to stop Minder from nodding some more. "I was so wrapped up in missing Frances that I forgot what I learned from her about people. She always had time for people, no matter what. It's what we all love her for, and my selfish misery has kept me from honoring that." Elgin was beaming. "Thank you for making me go to that game and for making me get involved." "You're welcome. And it tasted good, too, especially the second half. That's something, eh, with the lights? Really something." Elgin smacked his lips. "Let's eat."